May sat by the window that night, watching the streetlights blink through her tears. Dan wasn't home again. It was almost midnight. The food she cooked had gone cold on the table, and her heart felt colder. It wasn't the first time. He had been coming home late for weeks now. Sometimes he would whisper on the phone and cut the call when she walked in. Sometimes he would smile at messages she never saw. She had tried to trust him, but her mind wouldn't stop whispering that something was wrong. Earlier that evening, she saw a pink lipstick stain on his shirt collar when she went to wash his clothes. Her hands shook as she scrubbed it, tears mixing with the soap water. "Dan, why are you doing this to me?" she whispered. When he came home later, she didn't speak. He kissed her forehead, pretending not to notice the silence between them. "I had a long day," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." Tomorrow never came. The next day, May followed him. She wore a simple black hoodie and waited at the corner near his office. Her heart pounded when she saw him come out, laughing, holding a woman's hand. They walked toward a cafe together. May felt something break inside her. She turned away before her tears fell, biting her lip to stop the scream that wanted to escape. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying what she saw in her mind. Dan and that woman, their laughter, their closeness. She felt sick. Her cousin Tina noticed her red eyes the next morning. "You've been crying," Tina said. "Is it Dan again?" May nodded slowly. "He's cheating on me, Tina. I saw him with another woman yesterday." Tina gasped. "I knew it. I warned you about men like him. They pretend to love you, but they never stop chasing others." May's voice shook. "I gave him everything, Tina. My heart, my time, my life. And he's playing you," Tina interrupted sharply. "Don't let him win. You deserve better." Those words sank deep into May's heart like poison. Later that week, she noticed another strange thing. Dan left the house early and said he was going to the office, but when she called his secretary, the woman said he hadn't come in. May's hands went cold. "Then where is he?" she asked. That evening, she drove toward the part of town she had seen him before, and there he was again, standing beside the same woman. They were talking quietly in front of a jewelry shop. This time, the woman touched his face and smiled. May couldn't breathe. She ran home, threw her purse on the floor, and collapsed on the bed. Tears burned her eyes. When Dan came home that night, he was carrying a small box. "Hey," he said softly. "You're awake." May sat up, wiping her face quickly. "Where were you?" she asked. Dan hesitated. "Just work things." "Work things?" Her voice cracked. "Do you think I'm a fool?" "May, don't lie to me, Dan. I saw you with her." Dan froze. "With who?" "The woman you've been sneaking around with." For a moment his face showed pure confusion, then sadness. "May, you've got it all wrong." "Do I?" she whispered bitterly. "Then explain why she keeps touching you, why you hide your calls, why you smile when she texts you." He sighed and sat down beside her. "You wouldn't understand. Just trust me, okay? It's not what you think." But she couldn't. The hurt was too deep. Days passed. The silence between them grew heavier. Every time Dan tried to talk, May avoided him. She didn't know Tina was feeding her more lies behind his back, showing her fake messages, photos, and hints that made everything worse. Tina enjoyed watching her cousin's marriage fall apart. One evening, May sat alone on the bed, staring at the small bottle Tina had given her. "If he truly doesn't love you," Tina had said, "end it. Make him feel your pain." May's heart raced. She wasn't sure she could do it, but every image of Dan with that woman came rushing back. That night, Dan came home earlier than usual. He looked happy. "Guess what?" he said with a grin. May looked at him, her eyes cold. "What?" "I finally finished something special. I've been working on it for weeks. You'll see soon." She only nodded. Her voice was too heavy to speak. He kissed her cheek and whispered, "I love you, May." She turned away. "Do you?" He paused, looking at her sadly. More than you'll ever know. The next morning, Dan left early again. May stared at the bottle in her drawer. She didn't know that the woman she had seen with him was actually his cousin, someone he had asked to help him buy a surprise wedding gift. A golden bracelet with her name engraved on it. But May didn't know. She thought he was lying again. She started planning. She told Tina everything. "I'll do it on the wedding day," she said. "When everyone's celebrating, he won't even notice." Tina smiled wickedly. "Good. That's how you make a man pay." The days moved fast. Invitations, fittings, music rehearsals. From outside, May looked like a happy bride. But inside, her heart was filled with anger and confusion. Dan was glowing with joy. He had no idea what she was planning. On the night before the wedding, he left a note on her dressing table. It said, "May, tomorrow is the beginning of forever. I can't wait to spend my life proving my love to you. Dan." She read it, her hands trembling. For the first time, she felt guilt stabbing her chest. Was she wrong? She pushed the thought away and looked at the small vial hidden in her purse. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale and lost. At that same moment, Dan was sitting in his car with his cousin, the woman May thought was his lover. He handed her the wrapped box. "Do you think she'll like it?" he asked nervously. "She'll love it," the cousin smiled. "You're the best husband she could ever have." He smiled weakly. "I just hope she forgives me for being distant lately. I wanted everything to be perfect." Back at home, May closed her eyes and whispered, "He doesn't love me. Tomorrow, he'll feel what betrayal tastes like." She didn't know that she was the one being deceived. The night fell quiet, but her heart wouldn't rest. She dreamt of Dan's smile, his laugh, the way he used to hold her. In her dream, he reached out his hand and whispered, "Please, trust me." When she woke up, her pillow was wet with tears. Morning came. The sun rose bright and soft over the city. The wedding day had begun. The morning was bright and filled with excitement. The sound of drums and laughter echoed outside as guests began arriving. May sat in front of the mirror, her white gown shining, her heart breaking inside. Tina walked in, smiling wide. "You look perfect," she said. May tried to smile back. "Thank you." Her hands were shaking as she looked at the small bottle hidden inside her purse. She felt her heart pound against her chest. "Tina," she whispered, "are you sure this is right?" Tina leaned closer. "He hurt you, didn't he? This is your chance to make him feel what you felt. Just one drop. That's all it takes." May swallowed hard. She nodded slowly, even though her heart was screaming no. Outside, Dan was busy greeting guests. His face glowed with joy. He looked like a man who had everything he wanted. When his best man asked if he was nervous, he laughed. "No, I've been waiting for this day my whole life." When May walked down the aisle, Dan's eyes filled with tears. He couldn't stop staring at her. She looked beautiful, yet something in her eyes seemed far away. As the pastor spoke, May's mind drifted. She thought about all the moments they had shared, the nights they stayed up talking, the times he held her hand when she was scared. Then, like a ghost, she saw the woman's face again, the one she thought he loved. Her heart hardened. "I do," Dan said, smiling at her. May's lips trembled. "I do," she whispered. The crowd cheered. After the ceremony, they moved to the hall for the wedding reception. Music filled the air. Laughter echoed. Everyone danced, shouted, and celebrated love. But inside May's heart, love was fighting with hate. As she sat beside Dan at the couple's table, she kept her smile bright. No one noticed how her fingers trembled as she poured juice into 2 glasses. She slipped the small drop from the bottle into his drink. It mixed quickly, clear and unseen. Tina, standing nearby, watched with hidden excitement. She knew something May didn't. She had added more into the bottle earlier that morning. She wanted Dan dead for her own reasons, and May was just a weapon in her game. Dan raised his glass. "To us," he said warmly. May forced a smile and lifted hers. Their eyes met. For a second she saw the same old love in his face. Something inside her cracked. She wanted to stop him, to scream, to take the glass away. But before she could, someone called his name from behind, and he took a big sip. The crowd cheered again. Dan laughed, hugging her tightly. "I can't believe we're finally married," he whispered into her ear. Her chest tightened. "Yes," she said softly, her voice shaking. "Finally." An hour passed. The hall was filled with dancing guests. Dan moved from one group to another, thanking people, shaking hands, smiling. May tried to act normal, but her mind was spinning. What if he dies? What have I done? Suddenly the lights flickered. The crowd gasped. A waiter slipped and a tray crashed to the floor. Amid the confusion, Dan clutched his chest and staggered backward. "Dan!" May screamed, rushing to him. People gathered around as he fell to the floor. His breathing became weak. His skin turned pale. "Call a doctor!" someone shouted. May knelt beside him, tears flooding her face. "Dan, please, please stay with me." His eyes fluttered open, trying to focus on her. "May," he whispered, "the gift." He reached into his pocket with trembling fingers and pulled out the small box he had bought. It fell to the floor and opened, revealing a golden bracelet with her name engraved on it. May's whole body froze. Her mind flashed back to the woman she saw him with, the same woman who helped him buy this bracelet. "No," she gasped, her voice breaking. "No, no, no." Tina stood at a distance, her smile fading into a smirk. "It worked," she whispered to herself. Dan was rushed to the hospital. May rode beside him in the ambulance, her heart tearing apart. She held his cold hand, sobbing. "I'm sorry. Please don't die. Please, Dan. I didn't know." When they reached the hospital, doctors rushed him into the emergency room. Nurses held May back as she tried to follow. "Please, let me in. He's my husband." Hours passed like years. May sat on the floor, her wedding dress stained with tears and dust. Every sound made her jump. Every minute without news felt like a punishment. Tina arrived later, pretending to be worried. "How is he?" May looked up at her, broken. "He's still inside. I don't know if he'll make it." Tina sat beside her, rubbing her back. "You did what you had to do. Don't blame yourself." But May's eyes were empty. "I killed him, Tina. I killed the only man who ever truly loved me." Her voice cracked as she spoke. Tina said nothing. She looked away, hiding her evil smile. After a long while, a doctor came out. His face was serious. "We did all we could. He's alive, but in a coma. His body reacted badly to something he consumed. It was almost fatal." May covered her face with both hands and cried out loud. Tina squeezed her hand, pretending to comfort her. "At least he's alive," she said softly. But May's heart shattered. She had no words left. That night she went into the hospital room alone. Machines beeped softly around Dan's pale body. She touched his face gently, whispering through tears, "You didn't deserve this. I should have trusted you." She noticed the bracelet lying on the bedside table, now with a blood stain. She picked it up and held it to her chest, crying until she couldn't breathe. For days she stayed by his side. She didn't go home. She didn't eat. She just sat, holding his hand, whispering apologies he couldn't hear. Tina visited often, bringing food and pretending to be supportive. But when May wasn't looking, she deleted messages from Dan's phone, the ones that could expose her lies. One night, a nurse found May asleep beside Dan, her fingers still holding his. The nurse smiled sadly. "True love," she whispered, "even in pain." But May wasn't sure if she still deserved to call it love. Every day she begged for a miracle. Every day she prayed for Dan to open his eyes and tell her it wasn't too late. The guilt was slowly killing her inside. Then, one evening, after 2 long weeks, she felt his fingers move. "Dan?" she whispered, sitting up quickly. His eyelids trembled. His lips parted. He whispered faintly, "May." She burst into tears. Yes, it's me." He blinked slowly, confused. "Where am I?" "You're in the hospital. You've been here for 2 weeks." He tried to move but groaned in pain. "What happened?" May froze. She couldn't answer. Her throat tightened. The doctor entered just in time. "Don't stress him," he said. "He needs rest." When the doctor left, May sat quietly, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dan looked at her weakly. "You've been crying," he said softly. "Why?" She wiped her face quickly. "I was scared of losing you." He smiled faintly. "I'm still here." She nodded, but inside she was drowning in guilt. She didn't know how to tell him that she was the reason he almost died. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beeping of the monitor. May sat beside Dan, holding his hand gently. His fingers were warm again. His breathing was steady. But every time he smiled at her, guilt stabbed her heart deeper. He had no idea what she had done. "May," he whispered one morning, "I had the strangest dream. You were crying and I kept trying to tell you I love you, but I couldn't speak." Her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't a dream," she said softly. "You scared me so much." He smiled weakly. "Then don't cry anymore. I'm still here, okay?" She nodded, forcing a smile, but she knew she didn't deserve his kindness. Every night, when the nurses left, she sat by his bed and whispered prayers. She asked God to forgive her. She begged for a chance to make things right. But forgiveness didn't come easily. Not when she saw how pale he looked, how his body trembled when he tried to move. A week later, the doctor said he was stable enough to go home. May felt relief, but also fear. Home meant memories. The dining table, the laughter, the secrets. Tina offered to help with the preparations. "I'll clean up the house before you both return," she said with a smile. May nodded weakly. "Thank you." But she didn't know Tina's real plan. While cleaning, Tina entered Dan's study and deleted every message and email that could reveal her lies. She even found a voice note Dan had recorded, one where he had mentioned buying the bracelet with his cousin. Tina quickly deleted it too. By the time May and Dan came home, the house looked spotless and empty of evidence. Days turned into weeks. Dan started walking slowly around the compound, his strength returning little by little. May cooked his favorite meals, took care of him, and smiled whenever he looked her way. But at night, she cried herself to sleep. Dan noticed. One evening as they sat in the garden, he said softly, "You've changed, May." She looked down. "So have you." He chuckled weakly. Maybe almost dying does that to a man. Her heart clenched. "Don't say that." He reached for her hand. "I mean it, May. I'm lucky to be alive. I want us to start over. Forget the past. Just love each other again." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You still want to start over, after everything?" "Of course," he whispered. "I never stopped loving you." She smiled through tears, but her heart whispered, "If you knew the truth, would you still love me?" One afternoon, while doing laundry, May found something strange. Hidden deep in Dan's jacket pocket was a small piece of paper, a receipt from the jewelry store. It had a date, 2 days before the wedding, and beneath it was a note written by the shopkeeper. "Special engraving for Mrs. May Danvers." Her fingers shook. That was the proof, the truth she never saw. She sank to the floor, crying. He was innocent. He was innocent all along. She went to Tina immediately, her face pale with shock. "Tina, why didn't you tell me? He wasn't cheating. That woman was his cousin." Tina froze. What are you talking about?" "I found the receipt. You lied to me," May shouted. "You made me believe things that weren't true." Tina's face turned cold. "You were the one who believed it. I just showed you what you wanted to see." May's eyes widened. You added something to the bottle, didn't you? Tina smirked. You were too weak to do it yourself. I just helped. May stepped back, shaking. You're a monster. Tina crossed her arms. No, May, I'm just smarter. And if you tell anyone, remember, you were the one who gave it to him. May's heart pounded. She realized Tina was right. She couldn't tell anyone without destroying herself too. That night, May sat in the living room, staring at the wall. Dan walked in quietly and placed a blanket over her shoulders. You're cold, he said softly. She looked up at him, tears filling her eyes. Why are you so kind to me? He smiled faintly. Because that's what love does, even when it hurts. Her chest ached. She wanted to tell him everything, to beg for forgiveness, but fear silenced her. One evening, Dan received a call. It was from his cousin, the woman May once suspected. Dan, the cousin said urgently, did you ever get my message before your wedding? What message? He asked, confused. I left you a voice note saying I couldn't make it to the wedding because of my health. I sent it the morning before your big day. Dan frowned. I didn't get anything. After the call, he checked his phone. Everything was gone. Messages, voice notes, even photos. He called May. Did you delete anything from my phone? She froze. No. Why? He looked at her carefully. Then someone did. At that moment, pieces began to fit in his mind. Tina's too sweet behavior, her constant presence, her fake sympathy. Dan decided to investigate quietly. A few days later, while May was out, Dan asked his friend Luke, the one who had stayed with him during his recovery, to check security footage from the hospital and house cameras. What they found made his blood run cold. There was a recording from the day he collapsed, showing Tina near the drinks table, holding something in her hand and pouring it into a glass before walking away. Dan's face turned pale. She did it. She tried to kill me. Luke frowned. And May? Dan swallowed hard. She didn't stop it. She was part of it. His chest tightened. He still loved her, but now love had turned into something painful and confused. He didn't confront her right away. He wanted to know why. That night, when May came home, he pretended everything was normal. He kissed her forehead, smiled, and talked about dinner plans. But inside, his heart was breaking all over again. Tina, meanwhile, began to feel the pressure. She noticed Dan's distant stares. She realized he might have found something out. She tried to act natural, but paranoia grew inside her. One evening, she followed Dan secretly to Luke's office and overheard him say, I'll hand the footage to the police soon. Her heart raced. She couldn't let that happen. That night, she broke into the house, planning to steal the footage and destroy it. But she didn't know May had seen her enter. May followed quietly, her bare feet silent on the cold tiles. Tina! She shouted when she saw her sister holding Dan's laptop. Tina turned, eyes wild. You ruined everything! Put it down! Or what? Tina hissed. You'll kill me too? Tina, stop! But before either could move, Dan appeared behind them, his voice cold. Enough. They both froze. He looked at May, his eyes filled with pain. I know everything now. May's knees went weak. Tears rolled down her face. Dan, please, I'm sorry. I was blinded. I thought... You thought wrong, he said quietly. You didn't trust me. His voice broke on the last word. Tina tried to run, but Luke and 2 guards blocked her. She was arrested that night, screaming that it wasn't her fault. When the police took her away, May fell to the floor, crying. Dan, please forgive me. He didn't speak. He just walked away slowly, leaving her on the cold floor. Days later, May visited the hospital again, not for Dan, but for herself. She had collapsed from stress and grief. The doctor told her she was pregnant. She broke down completely. That night, she sat by the window, holding her belly, whispering, Your father doesn't deserve this pain. Neither do you. She wrote Dan a letter, filled with tears and regret. I wish I could undo what I did. You loved me when I couldn't love myself. If you ever find this, please forgive me. For you, for our child." She left the letter on his doorstep and disappeared. When Dan found it the next morning, he stood there silently, tears sliding down his face. He whispered, "May, come back to me." But she was gone. The days turned into weeks, and no one saw May again. Dan searched everywhere: hotels, hospitals, bus stations. He asked her friends, her family, even the police. Nothing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. He would come home every night, sit on the couch, and stare at her photo. "Why did you leave me, May?" he whispered. "Why didn't you let me forgive you?" He missed her laugh. He missed her clumsy cooking. He missed the way she would forget where she placed her phone and blame him for hiding it. But what he missed most was her love, that pure, crazy, fiery love that had once made his life feel like heaven. Now his world was silent. One rainy night, Luke visited him. "You can't keep doing this, Dan," he said quietly. "It's been months." Dan didn't answer. He was holding the letter May left behind, its edges now soft and worn. Luke sighed. "She's gone, man. Maybe she just needed to start over." Dan's voice cracked. "She's pregnant, Luke." Luke's eyes widened. "What?" "She wrote it in the letter," Dan said. "I'm going to be a father, and I don't even know where they are." For the first time, Luke had no words. Meanwhile, miles away in a quiet village, May was living in a small rented room. She worked as a teacher in a local nursery school, hiding her identity. She wore plain clothes, avoided photos, and never used her real surname. Her belly had grown. Sometimes she'd touch it and whisper, "You're all I have now." The villagers liked her. She was gentle and kind. They didn't know her past, and she never told them. But every night when she lay in bed, her heart ached. She missed Dan more than words could express. Sometimes she'd dream of him standing at the door, calling her name. She'd wake up crying, whispering, "I'm sorry." Months passed. Then one morning she went into labor. It was long, painful, but she refused to go to a big hospital. She wanted no records, no questions. After hours of struggle, she gave birth to a baby boy. She held him close, crying softly. "You have your father's eyes," she whispered. "I'll name you Daniel." Her heart broke and healed at the same time. Back in the city, Dan had almost given up hope. But one day, he received an anonymous letter in his mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single line. "She's alive. Look where the sun rises." He frowned, confused. But something about it felt real. He packed his bag that night and traveled east, to the countryside, where the sun rose over the hills. He didn't know exactly where to start, but he prayed for a miracle. After 2 days of searching, he stopped by a small school to ask for directions. A little boy ran past him, laughing, with eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. Dan froze. His heart began to race. He called out softly, "Hey, what's your name?" The boy stopped and smiled. "Daniel." The world seemed to stop spinning. Before he could say another word, May stepped out of the classroom, holding a pile of books. She froze when she saw him. The books fell from her hands. "Dan," she whispered. Tears filled his eyes. He walked toward her slowly, afraid she might disappear if he blinked. "You're really here." She shook her head weakly. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to," he said, his voice trembling. "I never stopped looking for you." May began to cry. "I didn't deserve your forgiveness." He reached out and took her hand. "You didn't have to earn it. I already gave it." She broke down completely, sobbing against his chest. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." He held her tight. "It's over now. We'll start again. For him." He looked at the boy who was staring curiously. May nodded, her heart finally finding peace after months of torment. But peace didn't last long. A few days later, Tina escaped from prison with the help of an unknown man. News spread fast. The same woman involved in Dan's poisoning case was on the run. When Dan heard, he became protective. He sent May and the child to stay at a friend's safe house. "I won't let her hurt you again," he promised. But Tina was already planning her revenge. On a cold evening, as May returned from the market, she saw someone standing by the gate. It was Tina, her face thinner, her eyes darker, holding a gun. May's breath caught. "Tina, please don't do this." Tina smiled bitterly. "You took everything from me. My freedom, my life, even Dan's love." "You did that to yourself," May whispered. Tina's hand trembled. "You don't get it. If I can't have peace, neither will you." At that moment, Dan's car pulled up. "Tina, drop it!" he shouted. But before anyone could react, a gunshot rang out. May screamed. Dan rushed forward, grabbing Tina's hand. The gun fell to the ground, but blood was already dripping from May's shoulder. "May!" Dan cried, holding her. "Stay with me!" she gasped, her voice weak. "I'll be okay. Just promise me you'll protect him." He shook his head desperately. "Don't talk like that." Sirens wailed in the distance as the police arrived and arrested Tina once again. May was rushed to the hospital. Hours later, the doctor came out smiling slightly. "She's going to live. The bullet missed her heart by inches." Dan dropped to his knees in relief. "Thank you, God." He went into her room, held her hand, and whispered, "You scared me again." She smiled faintly. "I guess we're even now." Months later, they got married again. A quiet ceremony in the village church, just the three of them and a few friends. No expensive decorations, no crowd, just love, forgiveness, and a small boy who giggled all through the vows. As they exchanged rings, May whispered, "I thought our wedding ended in death." Dan smiled. "No, it began with it, but it ends with life." He kissed her softly, and for the first time in a long time, both their hearts felt free. Life slowly returned to normal for Dan and May, but it wasn't the same kind of normal they used to know. It was quieter, softer, built on gratitude rather than perfection. They moved to a small town by the sea, where the waves touched the shore like whispers of forgiveness. Their little boy, Daniel, grew quickly, bright, curious, and full of life. Every time he laughed, it reminded Dan of how close they came to losing everything. Sometimes at night, May would wake up from nightmares, flashes of the wedding, the hospital, the gunshot. Dan would hold her until she fell back asleep. He never said it out loud, but he was scared too, scared of losing her again. One morning, as sunlight poured into the kitchen, May smiled as she watched their son try to make pancakes. Flour covered his tiny hands. "Daddy, look, I'm cooking," Dan laughed. "Just like your mom, making a mess before breakfast." May threw a towel at him playfully. For the first time in years, their laughter filled the house again. Moral lesson of this story: love dies not because of distance, but because of doubt. Trust is the oxygen of every relationship. Without it, love suffocates. Sometimes the enemy isn't the stranger outside, but the whisper of suspicion inside your heart. Before you act in anger, make sure your heart isn't being deceived by lies. This story teaches that trust and communication can save what blind jealousy and influence can destroy. May's pain reminds us that love built on suspicion collapses, while love built on truth endures. Hey family, if you felt something deep while watching this, don't just scroll away. Subscribe now, turn on your notification bell, and join our story world where emotions come alive.